Hello, I'm Bill Worrell. I work with Virginia Cooperative Extension based in Southwest Virginia in Russell County. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about the forestry test for the Envirothon, and we'll start by answering some questions that were emailed into us. Siobhan, do you have those in front of you? I know one of the questions simply was asking what a streamside management zone was. It was abbreviated SMZ. That stands for Streamside Management Zone, and that's basically a buffer strip along streams and waterways. So that's kind of similar to the CREP project. Most folks would know of the CREP project that USDA, NRCS, and the Soil and Water Districts have worked on over the years. But a streamside management zone is basically a best management practice for logging and timber harvesting along streams. And what we do is we leave a buffer strip along that stream channel as an area to minimize and reduce the amount of equipment traffic in that area. We can do some harvesting, but only do some partial harvesting. We do leave trees and a tree cover in that stream zone. And that also, we try to minimize any type of equipment and activity on the ground that would impact the surface of the ground and the leaf litter layer on top of the ground. So in our forest, we've got a leaf litter layer built up, and that covers the soil, protects the soil from erosion, and that helps filter stormwater runoff. So if we leave that streamside buffer along the stream in our harvesting area, then that can kind of act as a buffer area if there is any soil movement from any of the roads, the logging roads and skid trails that are built. If it is overflow stormwater runoff across the surface, if there's any soil movement into that towards the stream, the idea is that filter strip will help filter out and catch some of that erosion so it doesn't reach the stream and become sediment. The other part of that is that it also creates shade. So we're leaving a canopy there as well. So it's going to leave some shade over the water to prevent the water from increasing temperature. And that's important in our native trout streams and cold water streams and rivers. So that's basically what a streamside management zone is. Again, it's a buffer strip along water, running water, to help minimize sedimentation that might occur.
Okay, thank you, Bill. I know that there was one other question, specifically if there was going to be tree measuring in the test, or is it just going to be multiple choice questions on forestry in general? So I did reply saying that, because this is a virtual test, we wouldn't be asking you to measure trees, but I didn't know if there was some way that you thought there would be something that you could answer somehow. I don't know if you're going to have a picture or something like that. Anything about tree measuring?
Right, tree measurement is typically part of the event, but we haven't quite figured out how to make you measure a virtual tree. I could put a picture up and tell you to measure it with your ruler and tell me how many millimeters it would be, but based on the size screen that you have, it's going to be smaller on your screen than it is my screen and someone else's screen. So I can't have you physically measure a tree virtually. But it doesn't mean you don't need to know how to measure a tree or answer any questions that might be around how you would measure a tree. And of course, measuring the tree, you measure the diameter at breast height to get tree diameter or the number of 16-foot logs, and that's the merchantable standard. And those two components can help you determine the volume board feet in the tree. So, we haven't figured out how to make you measure a tree, but I can give you data and ask you to interpret data and tell me something about it.
Okay, thank you, Bill. That was the two questions that we had received earlier. And did you say you wanted to share a couple of resources via your screen here, just that would be on the recording for students to look at later?
Yeah, let me, where did it go? That's not what I wanted to share. I was wanting to share. Here we go. Here it is. I wanted to share, and since this will be recorded, those who are not here can see this. Here are some additional resources. Since someone asked about what an SMZ is, a streamside management zone is a best management practice used in logging and timber harvesting. And there are 3 publications here, and they talk about best management practices and skid trail closure and stream crossing and those types of things. That's just something you might want to look at. But any of those gets more into streamside management zones and roads and trails in harvesting systems. So I just wanted to share those. So that would be part of the recording, and you can find that. I've also emailed this to a couple of people. Hopefully we can get these resources put on the web page as additional resources. Those are extension publications. You can click on the link and it will open a PDF file. We can also get that link to you. You can open it and just look at it as a file on the web page, or you can download a PDF file. And are there any other questions? If there's not another question, I can show you another resource. If I can find the other main resource I would suggest you look at is basically that's not what I wanted to share. The study guide, the statewide, is that still showing you a Word document? Here we go. What are you seeing, Siobhan? This is the forestry study guide for the Envirothon John Rocket put together. This is listed as the resources, and it's on the web page. So really, if you want an overview of what could or could not, what could possibly be on the Envirothon test from for the forestry section of the Envirothon test, anything you find in this slideshow can be in the Envirothon test, the forestry Envirothon test. So that's got pretty much everything listed. Tree identification, parts of the tree, what are their functions. We've got photosynthesis. As far as tree identification, I think they showed you earlier in the sample test. We can give you pictures or diagrams and ask you to tell us what type of tree that is. The crown canopy classes, what are the layers of the forest from the dominant, codominant, intermediate, and suppressed trees. Then you've got ground layers of herbaceous plants and growing in the forest. And just all the abiotic and biotic factors, living parts and non-living parts of the forest ecosystem. You've got the forest types by physiographic provinces in the state of Virginia. So that's interesting information. You can see here the oak hickory forest type is we have more oak hickory forest type in Virginia than any other. And that's true across all of the physiographic provinces. So regardless of what part of the state you're in, there's more oak hickory forest type than anything else. Even in Tidewater, where we think about loblolly pine and southern yellow pine plantations, there's still more oak hickory forest type in the Tidewater region of Virginia. This also talks briefly about silviculture systems and harvesting systems. I won't read through all of this since you all can pull it up and download the PDF file and read through it at your leisure. But anything you find in this PDF file on the State Forestry Study Guide is fair game for the test. And this is the part where it talks about collecting plot data using a Biltmore stick to measure diameter and height. I'll bring attention to this slide. This is the top part here. Basically, if we were to give you a plot, in reality, if we had the live in-person test, you might see a plot out in the woods and you would be asked to measure a few trees, identify a few trees, and determine volume board feet. You get volume board feet from the volume table, the diameter of the tree, and the number of 16-foot logs. And you simply just pull that out of the table and plug it in your chart for your plot data. And if you look here, the questions at the bottom, the first one are the number of trees per acre. And you'll notice that per acre is your question, whereas you're looking at plot data. So you had 7 trees on your plot, and over here it told you that you had a 1/10 acre plot. So how do you determine trees per acre? You have to convert that trees on the plot to trees per acre. Since you have a 1/10 acre plot, you have to have 10 of those in order to come up with an acre. So 7 trees on a 1/10 acre plot would mean that would represent 70 trees per acre. Same with your board foot volume. If you total up your volume board feet, you get your total volume board feet on a plot. And if you do the math there, you would find that it's 1,054 board feet for that plot. But again, if the question is, what's the volume board feet per acre, you have to multiply your plot volume to get your total volume per acre. And again, if that's a 10th acre plot, you have to have 10 of those to get a per acre volume. So the volume board feet per acre would be 10,540 in that example with that data. So again, we can't make you measure trees, but we could give you data and then ask you questions about it. Let's see, the next slide is a stocking chart. Basically what the question that can be asked here is, based on the data in the plot, what is the stand stocking condition? And your choices here, the forest is understocked, which basically means you don't have enough trees growing to adequately utilize all the space. Is it well stocked or is it overstocked? And if it's overstocked, that means you've got more trees growing there than what it's really going to support well. So you're going to end up with some stress trees. Stress trees are more susceptible to insects and disease outbreaks. It also means that you've got a bunch of trees, and since there's more growing there than should, then the site will support from water and nutrients and sunlight. Then you're going to have a bunch of skinny trees instead of a few bigger trees. And typically speaking, bigger trees, bigger around trees have bigger markets because we can make more products with them. Whereas the skinny trees, for the most part, we can just make paper and paper products with those. The way you use the stocking chart is across the bottom, you see it says average diameter at breast height. So you would get your average tree diameter for all the trees 10 inches and greater on that plot. So the above example, you had 7 trees in your plot. It gave you the diameter, and you simply just get the average diameter. So your average diameter was 16. And again, you had 7 trees in that plot. So at your average diameter, you had 7 trees in a plot. So how many trees per acre is that? For a 10th acre plot, that would be 70. And you basically just read the chart. The horizontal line versus the vertical line, you come up from your average diameter. So where those 2 lines meet, that's your answer. And you're in the well-stocked portion of that chart. Does that make sense? It should. So again, so the answer would be this forest is well stocked. So that means you've got enough trees growing there. You're utilizing all of the available space to capture the sunlight for each tree to grow well and for each tree to get adequate water and nutrients that they're going to grow well and thrive and be a healthy forest. Okay, so again, the stocking chart's based on data from the plot. Here's another slide. It talks about prism plots. Foresters can actually use a prism as a method to do inventory. Looking through a prism tells us if we should count the tree or not in our inventory. And the prism will measure basal area. And a prism is either a 10-factor prism, means that everything is a factor of 10. So if we count the tree, then it would have 10 square feet of basal area. And at the bottom of this slide shows you if you count a tree or you do not count a tree. When you look through the prism, it's going to give you an offset. So right here, you see the offset, and that offset is still within the boundary, is still within the width of the tree trunk. So you would count that tree in your plot data. Whereas the one here in the middle, you see the offset looking through the prism is outside of the edges of that tree trunk. So you do not count that tree. So if you were looking at that tree through your prism, you would not count that tree and measure that tree for your plot data. And then on the third one here, it shows that it's basically on the borderline. You can't really tell if it's in or if it's out. So that's marginal. And there are different ways to determine if you really count that tree. One rule of thumb is you count every other one of those borderline or marginal trees. But the big takeaway here is reading it. If you look through that prism and the offset is within that tree trunk, you count that tree. That tree is considered in your plot, and you measure it and you count that. And specifically looking at a prism plot, that one tree would, with a 10-factor prism, would indicate that you have 10 square feet of basal area. So based on the plot data earlier, if you had 7 trees in your plot that you counted, you would have 70 square feet of basal area for that plot. Okay. So I just wanted to bring that up as well. And then again, the rest are basically slides talking about different parts of our forest, renewable natural resources. You've got urban forest, you've got our traditional forest, and then of course, ecosystem services is basically the good air quality we get, how trees help filter air, and of course, water quality and quantity. In Virginia, just under 2/3 of our state is covered in trees growing forests. So the land area in Virginia that is forested is more than any other land use in Virginia. So we've got a lot of forests, and those help provide clean water into our streams and rivers. We also get a lot of wildlife habitat, and then there's enormous amounts of recreation for people from our forests. So those are the good things. Some of the other good things we get from our forest other than making our products. And these things kind of tie into our special topic this year with water. Again, this slide just talked about the special issue topic is water resource management. And we get a lot of water production from our forest land. So our trees and our forests are important in filtering water and helping maintain good clean water flowing in our streams and rivers. We also get good benefits, stormwater runoff benefits in our urban environment and in our cities as well. So there's some good things to think about from our forest and trees for that part as well. That's all the specific things I'm going to say, but I would just recommend that you look through that state forestry study guide that John Rocket put together. And that can provide you with a lot of good information. I think we've answered what questions were presented to us. I'll be happy to try to answer any other questions anyone can come up with, Siobhan.
Okay, thank you, Bill. We'll be sure to share any questions with you. And this concludes the forestry breakout session.